All right, hey everybody, welcome. We're live. Go ahead and unmute your mics, Chris. Drew.
Yep.
Had a little bit of a snafu there. Welcome to the great flogging in Philly post game.
Oh boy, can you hear me, Ted?
I can hear you. I'm your host, Ted Glover. With me as are my usual partners in crime for the post game show, the founder, lead blogger for the Daily Norseman, Christopher Gates, and my partner in crime and my co-host on Vikings Report, Drew Bunning. Gentlemen, that was not pretty. That was not pretty.
Yeah.
First of all, everybody who's joining us in the chat, welcome. I wish we had a better post game to talk about, but it is what it is. I go ahead, start us off, Drew.
Oh, how do you start that off except saying welcome, welcome, welcome? Thank you for at least tuning into our show tonight. As much as we all were gloating last week, this is just as bad on the other end this week. It was almost felt like the Vikings were patting themselves on the back a little too much. That was a flogging, guys. I mean, we'll talk about it as we go, but that just looked like a team that was more ready than we were, and they beat us to the punch, and there's a lot to chew on with this game and what direction the Vikings are going at this point.
Chris, I think at one point you said this had a Leslie Frazier team vibe about it. I couldn't agree more, my man.
It really did. I mean, we talked about after every game of the Frazier era, it was, we're going to go back, we're going to watch the tape, we're going to fix some things. Well, it doesn't even seem like they watched the tape. I mean, it was like they'd never seen Jalen Hurts take a snap before in his entire freaking football life or anything. And this was a complete, well, I'm not going to say it was a complete team meltdown because the special teams was awesome. I mean, Ryan Wright was great tonight, and the kick coverage was great. Special teams was solid, but the offense and the defense were all pretty terrible.
Yeah, it was. It was not good, boys.
To lead us in, I want to ask you guys, and I asked Ruby this during the game. What did Donatel plan for this week? It looked like he didn't plan for Jalen. What kind of game plan did that guy present as a defensive coordinator? I am really disappointed in that guy this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Troy Aikman said it numerous times today. It's like, we got like midway through the third quarter, getting into the fourth quarter, and every other sentence out of Aikman's mouth was like, they're not doing anything different. Well, why the hell are you not doing anything different? Because what you're doing clearly wasn't working. I mean, good. I don't get it.
They played this soft. It looked like a cover 4 shell zone the entire game, and there were guys more wide open. Oh, I'm not even gonna make a porn movie joke, but man, there was the Vikings did not cover anybody all night long. It was unbelievable. It was the worst of the Mike Zimmer era, coming out unprepared. They looked flat. Philadelphia went right down the field. I think at 11 plays, 82 yards. The Vikings,
Yep.
It was classic 2021. The Vikings deferred. Let's put the defense on the field. And I'm thinking, okay, hey, the defense is better. 11 plays, 82 yards later, 7-0 Philadelphia.
Yeah, and there was no resistance. Honestly, I'm looking at the stats. Jalen Hurts threw 5 incomplete passes all night. 5 incomplete passes.
And
You can't do that.
how can one team have nobody open? Kirk's throwing it out of bounds because he can't find a receiver anywhere. And then the other team has like 4 guys running wild. How can it be such a contrast, Ted? How can it be so different? How can it look so different? How?
It was all night long, man. It
Guys
did not
are wide
change
open.
all night.
Wide open, running through the secondary. And then when the Vikings get it, they can't even hit a measly freaking 4-yard check down. He's covered.
And not only that, I mean, like the Eagles, I think the Eagles had over 300 yards of offense by halftime.
They had 347 yards at halftime.
And the Vikings, I think, had 5 possessions and had 4 3-and-outs, if I'm not mistaken, or 4 possessions and 3 3-and-outs, whatever it was. It was about as lopsided a football game as you could get. And the Eagles go up 7-0. At the end of the first quarter, it was It was 7-0. First play of the second quarter. I think Donatel played that soft cover 4 shell or whatever, that zone, ridiculous zone all night, trying to prevent a deep pass. The very first play of the second quarter was Quez Watkins. It goes deep 53 yards. Now all of a sudden it's 14-0. And you're like, God, as bad as that first quarter was, you thought, well, maybe if the Vikings can get a stop here, they can sort of start turning around. And it seemed whenever the Vikings had a chance to get something going, they shot themselves in the foot all night long.
That 10 yards in the first quarter, guys.
Yep.
Not 10 yards per play, Ted. 10 total in the first quarter.
They ran 6 plays in the first quarter because they went 3 and out twice.
God, you can't come into especially a road game, Chris, and do that. The first 2 series were like, what in the hell are we? What is O'Connell doing? You gotta, the first 3 and out, then they come back and run it in the middle, have another 3 and out. What are you doing? You gotta change it up.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
And I know a lot of what happened tonight is going to be placed at the feet of Kirk Cousins, and rightfully so, because you could maybe put that first interception on Justin Jefferson because of the bad route or whatever, but those last 2 were completely on him. And for most of the third and fourth quarter, it looked like he was targeting Eagles defenders. Quite frankly, I mean, he was.
He played terrible.
But the receiving group didn't really do him a lot of favors because it might be a different game if Irv Smith holds on to what was as good a pass as Cousins threw all night.
Yeah,
and he would have coasted into the end zone on that play, but no, he drops it, and then things just keep going downhill because that's just the way things go with this team.
Yeah, let's go back to that play. It was 14-0. The Vikes finally get a good drive. They go 9 plays, 75 yards.
That was a good drive. That was
a couple big plays. Kirk threw an absolute dart to KJ Osborne. Johnny Munt had a big gain for 17 yards down to the 2-yard line. Jalen Rieger had a jet sweep on 3rd and 1 for 17 yards. He was the leading rusher for the evening. I think he was tied with Kirk at one point towards the end of the game. Irv Smith caught that short touchdown pass. It was 14-7. That following drive, Cam Dantzler, it was a great drive by Cam Dantzler. He had 2 big tackles, then he had that defensive holding call, and then he had another pass breakup on 2nd down. He shook that off. I thought it was a great drive by him. And then that play that you were talking about, Chris, the Vikings were down 14-7. If football is a game of ifs, if Irv catches that, he's got nothing but real estate to the end zone. The only thing that was gonna stop him was if he tripped, on the turf monster. 14-14 there, and it might have been a different ball game, but that drop was one of those moments where the Vikings had a chance to start turning around the bad start and sort of get it to even and sort of start over, and they just missed a golden opportunity there.
They sure did. Missed a lot of opportunities tonight because the defense got off to that slow start, but toward the end they were giving the Vikings opportunities, and the Vikings didn't do anything with them.
You know what, guys? For as horribly as the defense played in this game, and they gave up 486 yards of offense, I think somewhere around there, which is not good. As horribly as they played on offense, they squandered a lot of chances to stay in this game.
Yeah.
They had a drive, an interception, and they had a blocked field goal, got down there, did nothing with it, interception, and they had chances. They had chances to make this a 24-24, 28-24 type of game, and the offense just blew it. And I'm not making excuses for the defense. The defense looked terrible, but the offense had their chances, and every time they had a chance to see the momentum, they didn't want it. They didn't want the momentum, and they just gave it back. So they had their shots, Chris. They had a lot of chances.
No, they certainly did. And yeah, they didn't do anything with it. I mean, I don't know how much more you can put it than that.
No, and the thing that frustrated me, it was 17-7. The Vikings had a chance to get down and maybe get points before halftime, and Kirk, I believe that's when Kirk threw his first interception down there in the end zone. Eagles had the ball. I think they started at the 5 or whatever it was. And they, again, just like right out of 2021, they drove the length of the field. kicked a field goal, and I think it was like 24-7 at halftime. And that play sequence from when Irv dropped that touchdown all the way through the end of the half just completely changed the complexion of the football game. And they had a very slim chance of winning.
Right.
But I will say they came out the second half and that drive started very promising. They went no huddle. They changed tempo, tried to get things going.
Looked good for a while.
And then, Kirk throws a pick in the end zone again. And it was just, then you had the blocked field goal attempt that you thought could have turned things around. You had the Jordan Hicks interception that got the ball inside the 10, and the Vikings could do absolutely nothing with any of those. Both those drives, I believe, ended in Kirk Cousins interceptions. It was just.
So what do you chalk it up as, Ted? It's one of those anomalies of things that don't go right one game, or is it something you got to be able to capitalize in football? Everything is, remember the handful of plays? Everything comes down to a few plays. Those are the few plays you got to take advantage of.
Yeah.
So is this something that, just a freak thing that happened tonight where everything was going bad, or is it?
It's still early. That's a good question. I don't know. I think how this team responds next week will tell us a lot more than snap judgments from this game this week.
And talk about ends of the spectrum. Week 1 to week 2. This is a big difference in week 1.
Yeah. So now who are the Vikings? Are they the team that absolutely whipped Green Bay in week 1? A team that is expected to be, on the short list for going to the Super Bowl, or the team that got whipped by Philadelphia tonight? Another team that's expected to make a deep playoff run.
Philadelphia looked great tonight, didn't they?
They did. They looked unstoppable. I said in our pregame show, I said, look, if the Vikings can contain Jalen Hurts, they're going to win the game. They could not. They absolutely could not contain Jalen Hurts.
Speaking of which, I gave Jalen Hurts the check mark on our preview board, and I caught a bunch of shit for it. Now, who's the best quarterback tonight?
Jalen Hurts, hands down.
Yes, it was. Yep.
Wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I mean, is this which Minnesota Vikings team is this going to be for 2022?
Right. It's trippy. It is trippy.
I mean, I would be fine with a loss. Drew, you said the Vikings were going to lose. I kind of thought they would win this game. I did think they would win this game. I would have been okay with a loss had they been somewhat competitive. I mean, it's tough to win on the road.
Yeah.
Monday night, Philadelphia is a tough place to play. I get all that. But the thing that's really bothersome for me is this team wasn't even competitive, Chris. Not from opening kickoff to the final gun. This team was not even competitive tonight.
No, they weren't. I mean, like we've said already, there were guys running wide open in the secondary all night.
Oh,
I mentioned it earlier. Drew mentioned the rushing yard total. This team's paying guys like Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Phillips a lot of money so the teams don't do the things that Philadelphia was doing on the ground tonight. They were still averaging about 5 yards a carry. And that was ugly. And just the complete lack of adjustments from Ed Donatel to do anything different. I don't get it. I honestly don't understand.
Last week I thought they had a very good defensive game plan, and they put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I thought they did a very good job of covering the Packers receivers for the most part. If there was a weak spot to the game, it was the running game, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. I think they averaged almost 5 yards per carry. Tonight, it was an absolute complete collapse. The run defense was terrible.
163 yards, Ted, allowed.
They couldn't cover anybody. And like you said, what was Ed Donatel thinking? Because they gave 5 to 10 yard cushions to Eagles receivers all night long. All night. The Vikings made absolutely zero adjustments, and that was arguably the most puzzling thing about this defense.
Donatel made it easy on Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
He made it easy on the guy. It's like he's never seen tape on him before. Jalen Hurts could either hit the short zone, the little square out, little slant route, hit somebody in the flat, or he could take off and run for 7 yards. He had it all in his back pocket tonight. Hurts was unstoppable, and he is stoppable, but we didn't have a plan for him.
No,
Nope.
no, it sure looked like it. Sure
Not
didn't
even
look like
close.
they did.
And that's a big part of the game when you play Philly. That's a big part of the Jalen Hurts is turning into a really good quarterback week by week by week. I mean, he catches a lot of shit for what's going on there in Philadelphia, but you saw it tonight. That guy's a leader. And that guy's good. And you got to be ready to that one run when he made it all the way to the end zone. I was thinking, my God, what are you doing? You can't. And like Chris said earlier about the adjustments, at least take the running away from him. Take something away. They took nothing away from him. They didn't take his running. He scrambled and made passes. He was like doing whatever he wanted to do. And even the long situations, we had a bunch of 3rd and 12s. We couldn't get him off the field.
Yeah. Yeah. That first,
ridiculous
that very first drive, that opening drive, they had a 3rd and 8, had a 12-yard run. 3rd and 13, threw for 19 yards. 3rd and 3, had that 8-yard pass down to the goal line. They just the Vikings, at times it felt like, and a lot of it was due to Philadelphia's shooting themselves in their own foot with penalties.
Right.
They had the favorable down and distance, 2nd and long or 3rd and long, and they just gave Philadelphia all kinds of room to make plays and catch and run and get yards after catch, and nothing was counted all night. Nothing.
Chris, what was going on with the secondary? Chris, tell me what they were doing out there. What was the secondary doing? Were they lost? Were they just unsure of what were they doing?
Like Ted said, they were playing 5 or 10 yards off of receivers all night, and they were just, settling down into the zones and catching short passes and turning them into bigger plays for the most part. So, and they were just able to do that all night because there were no adjustments made.
And there was one point, I don't know if you guys remember this, Devontae Smith was kind of in the slot, and they had DJ Wanham on him.
What was that all about, Ted?
And it gave me PTSD back
to that Ohio State right there.
It gave me PTSD back to that national championship game where Devontae Smith was a tough Borland Ohio State linebacker was on Devontae Smith. And Devontae Smith had like 400 yards passing or receiving at halftime. What are they doing?
I thought about
Why did they ever cut Tough Borland? Why didn't they bring him back on the roster, put him on the field?
When they showed the replay of Wanham trying to stay with him, I thought of you, Ted, and Tough Borland in that Ohio State game. I did. I thought of you, man.
First thing I thought of when I saw that. Go ahead, Chris.
It was like that. It was like that Rams game back in 2018 where we were watching Anthony Barr chase Cooper Kupp all over the field for 4 quarters, and Cooper Kupp had like 200 and something receiving yards. It was, I don't know. How do you wind up with DJ Wanham on Devonta Smith?
That was what Kevin O'Connell was doing to the Packers last week. He was scheming Justin Jefferson into mismatches on the field. Adam Thielen was invisible until the game was completely out of reach.
Right.
KJ Osborne only had 1 target. And look, let's talk about Kirk Cousins because he was terrible.
Okay, let's talk about Kirk Cousins.
He was absolutely terrible tonight. I think you got.
Why is that, guys? Why is that?
You got his final stats up there, Chris, by chance?
I do. He's 27 of 46 for 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, quarterback rating of 51.1.
That is not Cousins.
Before that last drive, his quarterback rating I believe was at like 38. And for comparison's sake, if you take every snap and just throw it straight into the ground, your quarterback rating is 39.6. So the Vikings would have literally been better off with Kirk Cousins taking the snap every time and just spiking it into the ground.
Okay, what was it with him?
3 picks. He had 3 picks tonight.
3. Yep.
All at critical junctures.
All inside the Eagles' 30-yard line.
God, man.
Now what? Let's look at it like Ted said. Let's break down Cousins a little bit. Was it Philly's defense and the looks? Was it confusing him? Was he just mentally offset tonight? Was it the pressure? What was it tonight that made Kirk Cousins look like ass? Because it was sheer smelly ass.
I think, and I hate to say it because you've got this narrative about primetime Kirk. He freezes, chokes, whatever the term is you want to use in primetime moments. Now he had gotten a little bit better, but it looked like early on there were guys that might have been open downfield earlier in the game, and he just seemed to take the safety valve to check down. and not want to risk a big play. And when he did throw downfield, Darius Slay. I mean, it's like Darius Slay was his favorite receiver tonight. It was unbelievable.
That 2-yard pass to Irv Smith in the first, that was a weird play. That was like a little shovel, little dip off pass he gave
for the touchdown.
No. It's like a second down. There's a bunch of open field, and it looked like he could have gone downfield. And he what play I'm talking about, Chris? He flipped it to him, and it's like a 2-yard gain out of bounds. Had no chance of getting any yardage on the play.
I'd have to go back and have a look, but I mean, there's no reason to. Just another example of a missed opportunity, I'm guessing.
I don't know if Kirk. Kevin O'Connell talked about Kirk playing with a quiet mind and being able to see the field, make his reads. That didn't happen tonight, and I didn't think. Go ahead.
There was an Iron Maiden concert going on in Kirk Cousins' brain tonight, man. Seriously.
Run to the hills.
There was no quiet happening there at all.
2 minutes to midnight. What was it? What was going on with? How could he look that dominant week 1 and then look like that tonight? I mean, it's just a bad night or what? Everybody's entitled to a bad night. Ted Glover, you've had bad nights. You need to chalk it up,
But I don't have bad nights on Monday Night Football, and Kirk does. I mean, Kirk does, and this is a thing. This is a thing, man. I mean, like if this. This is the thing that bugged me about Kirk, and I bitched about it for 4 years. And last year he seemed to overcome a lot of those issues. He led the Vikings on more than one drive that could have won a football game had the defense not collapsed or a kicker not missed a field goal. And I thought he had gone a long ways to put that crap to bed. But he did just as much to bring it back front and center tonight. Now, you can talk about that first interception being on Justin Jefferson, but Kirk did not look comfortable. He did not look like he was in command of the offense. And he was just, man, at the end of the game, he was just chucking throws up, hoping a dude caught it. I mean, and that's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of it. I really don't, because I see how he played last week. Here's what's weird about it. That one drive when he came out and Ted said earlier he hit KJ Osborne on that really confident slant pattern, and he's really maneuvering the team. Looked very confident, Chris, going down the field. He looked good. All the passes were good. He looked like he was really leading the team and confident about what he's doing. How does it go from that to the next drive looking like shit? I don't understand how you transform. It seems like if you have a handle on it that one drive, you'd have a handle on it the next drive and a handle on it the next drive. How does it go from that good to in the crapper that fast? That's what gets me.
No, I don't understand it either. I mean, like you said, he had that drive. It looked like it was going to end in a touchdown, but I believe that was where the first interception came from. And after that, it just all went into the crapper, and I really don't understand why. Honestly, I have no idea.
Primetime Kirk. I mean, look, man. I thought it was a fairly unfair narrative, but
Ted, the guy's been in the league for 10 years. How can primetime games get to him? How can it get to him still?
But they do.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying how. How could he be like mesmerized by the moment after playing so many primetime games? It's like.
I don't know. It seems dumb, but you look at the historical patterns and evidence, and it's a thing. It just is a thing. And I hate to say it, but it's a thing.
He looked jittery back there.
He did.
He looked jittery as hell, and I think that forced him to on that first interception that Slay cut off JJ in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the replay, Madison was on the short crossing route. If he throws it to Madison, he probably scores. There's nobody.
Probably.
There's nobody in front of him. There's nobody covering him. So the time he's supposed to look at the check down, he forces it. And right there, he should have looked at the short crossing route. Madison, I think, would have taken at least inside the 5 on that play.
Here's something we can have a little fun with, looking through social media and some of the post-game quotes and stats.
That's always fun.
Patrick Peterson, quote, "The Eagles didn't do anything offensively the Vikings defense wasn't prepared for. They just didn't execute." You didn't look like you were prepared for anything tonight, dude. I mean, dang. How do you? We all watched the game, dude. Y'all weren't prepared for anything.
Oh, that's funny.
If that's being prepared, this is I'm just half joking here. But if that's being prepared, this team's going to win one or maybe two more games all year.
And our friend Arif Hassan, who is now moving to Pro Football Network from the Athletic, so congratulations to him on that. A lot has been made of Kirk Cousins in prime time, and this comes with a gigantic spreadsheet of stats and numbers that we're not going to get into. But
we are not going to get into that.
Through 3 quarters tonight, this was the worst primetime performance of Kirk Cousins' career.
Okay.
The worst, the absolute worst, until he got the kind of garbage time numbers in the fourth quarter.
And that's another stat that garbage time Kirk is garbage time Kirk and primetime Kirk. And whatever you want to say to dispel those narratives, people that don't follow the Vikings, they only probably watch them on games like this.
Right.
It reinforces all those stereotypes. And I hate it. It sucks because Kirk had a hell of a game last week. He played great football last week. And he was as bad tonight as he was as good last week.
Can I shoot you guys a question?
Sure.
About social media and Twitter? What is going on with ESAT Nation right now? They must be loving it. They must be like, oh, I told you so. I told you Kirk Cousins is,
yeah.
ESAT Nation must be going crazy right now.
For those first of all, we got 352 people in the room. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. ESAT Nation, if you're not familiar, that's the Everything Sucks All the Time crowd. Nobody can ever be made happy because nothing the Vikings ever do is good enough. Now tonight, yeah, okay, that's fair argument tonight.
Oh, they must be loving it. They must be loving it.
To Kevin O'Connell's credit, he said during the press conference, I put this one on me. I don't think I did enough.
Good.
So when's the last time we heard that from a Vikings coach?
It's
been a while.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do about it?
There you go. We have talked all off season about this new culture, this new approach, this new attitude. How resilient is this new culture and this new attitude going to be next week? Because they got Detroit next week, boys, and Detroit ain't no slouch now. This ain't the Motor City Kitties that your dad grew up watching and loving.
Hey, Wayne Fonts is not walking through that door.
Good God, Wayne Fonts. Man, that is reaching, Chris.
Eric Hipple ain't walking through that door.
Oh!
Yeah.
Thank goodness Barry Sanders isn't walking through that door.
Eric Hipple.
He'd still average 6 yards a carry against his defense too, I'm guessing.
Probably. So I want to talk about this run defense. Is it officially a problem after 2 games?
Yep.
I think it is. I think it is. And I listened to the 2-0 Blogger show, which is Dave and Darren Campbell. Very good show. They have a lot of really good information. And Darren had mentioned that he broke down all the runs during the Green Bay game, and he wasn't really worried about, they didn't have a lot of long runs. It's the 6.2 average per rush that Green Bay had was kind of misleading. So I sent him a message tonight saying, do you still think it's misleading? Because they are tearing off some big ass kings tonight.
Yeah.
So
I thought Darren was kind of right. I mean, the runs, yeah, okay, but it was a point in the game where the Vikings had a fairly comfortable lead, and all those runs did was chew up clock, and that worked to the Vikings' advantage tonight. They
got gashed tonight.
They did. They
got their
did.
tits licked on the run game.
Let's talk about Dalvin Cook. Speaking of getting tits licked, Dalvin Cook got his tits licked pretty hard too. He might have had his worst game as a Minnesota Viking where he wasn't injured.
How does DeAndre Swift tear off these giant runs against the Eagles? DeAndre Swift, who's I'm going to tell you right now, DeAndre Swift is not better than Dalvin Cook.
And he's not a bad back, but you're right. He's not better than Dalvin.
He was gashing the Eagles. Talk about getting your tits licked. He was licking tits because he was kicking their ass. So we're all thinking, Dalvin Cook is just going to tear off some 25, 35. He may even score a 50-yard run. And he did really nothing on the ground tonight. Ted, we talked about that in the preview. We were banking on him tonight.
I thought Dalvin Cook was going to have a monster game based on what I saw. I watched that whole Eagles-Lions game, and you're right. DeAndre Swift was ripping off yards in enormous chunks.
Yes.
And it seemed after what the Vikings did, they had a pretty good game running the ball. I think Cook had 90 yards last week, right off the top of my head. I can't remember.
90, yeah.
It just felt like on the road and Monday night in a big hostile environment that the Vikings were probably going to use Dalvin Cook a lot early on. And it just seemed like he was going to have a good night. And that couldn't have been farther from the truth.
How
No,
they
I believe
stop
in the
him?
first half. In the first half, he had 5 touches. He had 4 yards. That's
Jeez. I didn't see that coming at all. I'll be honest.
No, Ted's right. I didn't either.
I'm not a math guy, but that's bad.
Yeah.
It really is. That's
So
bad.
did that tank the offense because he couldn't get on track?
I
don't. It didn't help.
didn't. I mean, when you run Cook and you get a yard or no gain, and now it's 2nd and 9, and
Well,
the crowd's
you know,
getting into it. You know,
If you don't have a plan B, then that's your problem.
yeah,
That's O'Connell's
true.
problem.
Yeah.
You're just banking on somebody that's he's going to rush for 100 yards in the first half. And if he doesn't, you're just going to get your ass kicked. That's not a good plan.
All right, real quick, we got just over 400 people watching. Thanks so much for joining us.
Any questions?
Really appreciate it. If you would, when you're done here, go to Purple Pain Forums, our official message board for Vikings Report with Drew and Ted. As long as you just make a comment, just say hi, how are you, whatever. You'll be entered to win a prize. We're going to give away a prize tonight, aren't we? We're still going to.
Yes.
Yeah, we're still going to give away a prize.
We like prizes, Ted. We don't let the Vikings control our prizes.
Yeah, Ruby's writing your names down. She's got the big electronic wheel of Toons' destiny. I don't know what we're calling it. and at the end, when we're done here, we'll roll. She'll spin the wheel and we'll get you a prize. So just make a comment. She's tracking all your names. And anyways, with that said, I just here's what's the most baffling thing. The final score ended up 24-7.
Right.
The Vikings had a blocked field goal that completely flipped the field position. They had an interception by Jordan Hicks that returned inside the 10-yard line. And they only scored 7 points all night. Whenever the Vikings got momentum, Kirk threw an interception. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. And that usually doesn't happen. It's weird.
No, it doesn't. I'm just trying to figure out what this team is, and I think we will find out a lot more next Sunday against Detroit.
Football is a weird, wicked mistress, Ted. Some weeks your offense is going to be really efficient, and your offense is going to carry your team, and your offense is just going to put up touchdown after touchdown after field goal after touchdown. They're going to stack cheese. Sometimes it's all on the offense. Some weeks you're dependent on the defense to get it done. And tonight, the defense was struggling. They were taking like Thomas Hearns, right cross after left, just on the ropes. And they needed the offense to keep them in the game. And the offense couldn't come through.
This felt very much like a 2021 game. The defense would give up a drive, and the offense would come right out in the field and go 3 and out, and put the defense right back, and put the defense right back in a bad position. I mean, I think you said we talked about time of possession. It was 2-1 for Philadelphia tonight. You're just not going to win a lot of football games.
And I know people are in the chat right now saying Drew's crazy. The defense sucked. They were the cause for the loss. But you're going to have football. You're going to have weeks like that where the defense is good, the offense is good. You're going to have to rely on the other unit to come through, Ted. And tonight the defense wasn't good, but the offense had their chances to keep them in the game. Yeah. They only had 24 points at halftime.
It was, yeah.
What did they finish with?
Nobody scored in the second half.
That's right. That score-wise, they had their chances.
And in that second half,
to stay in the game, they did.
Yeah, and in that second half, they took the ball, went right down the field, threw the interception in the end zone. Had the blocked field goal, got into plus territory, threw the interception. Got the interception from Hicks, threw the interception.
Right. You're right back in the game if you capitalize on that, aren't you?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
You sure are.
So,
yep.
So what do we think, boys? Is this Fire O'Connell, Fire Quasey, rehire Zimmer before it's too late.
Jesus, no. Let's not lose
saw-
our minds here.
I saw a post going, I knew Donatel was shit when we hired him. I mean, come on, it's one game, bro. I mean,
he was bad tonight. There are no excuses you can give for the Vikings. There were no bad calls that screwed the Vikings out of a win. There were no the only thing that might have possibly changed the game was Herb dropping that touchdown.
yeah.
But, good teams make those plays. I said this last week when Christian Watson dropped that pass on the first play of the game against Green Bay. Good players and good teams make those plays. And last week, Green Bay was not a good team. This week, Minnesota was not a good team. They got their ass handed to them.
Come on,
down.
guys. Philadelphia had a great offensive game plan. And
They
if you want to argue with me, you're wrong. Because they did. They worked their plan to they did. They had a great game plan. And if you can't give them credit, then you're not looking at the game in the right aspect. You have to put that into consideration, Philly's game plan.
Here's a good question from Dan Lear. It's not really a question, it's a comment. It's not fire anybody. It's a rookie coaching staff. And we kind of said this in the offseason. You're going to have, moments like this, a new head coach.
But that's what makes the defensive thing so weird. Because Ed Donatel coached Red Grange, for Christ's sake. This is not Ed Donatel's first rodeo. I mean, he needs to know that, okay, this is not working. I need to do something different.
That's what's weird about it, man.
Yeah. That's what I don't get.
You can make that excuse for Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips on the offensive side. Ed Donatel has been in this league forever.
Yeah.
He knows when to make adjustments and when not to, and he just didn't.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Chris.
Not one all night. And look, if the offense isn't doing anything, the defense, Drew, you talked about, sometimes the offense is going to make plays, sometimes the defense is. The defense needed to kind of gather up and say, look, we've got to make something happen.
Right.
And they just they were reactive. They were not proactive at all this evening. I don't think there was one moment where the Vikings defense disrupted Philadelphia to the point where Philadelphia said, we have to adjust what we're doing because that isn't working, because the Minnesota Vikings have that figured out.
Exactly
They never had to do that, because whatever Philadelphia wanted to do, Ed Donatel was like, yeah, okay, that's good. All right, good. Yeah. You want us to back up a little bit more? You need a little bit more yardage? That's 15. We'll back up 20 yards, get you the first down. How's that? Will that work for you guys? Yeah. Okay, good.
That's a great point, because they determined the pace of the whole game, the tempo, what we're going to do. The Vikings were back on their heels all night.
Yeah.
And they never made that physical stand where, you know what I'm saying? We're going to change the defensive momentum.
Yep.
To make you change what you're doing. You are exactly right, Ted. And then if you're going to be back on your heels the whole game, then you're not going to stop them a lot of times.
Hey, special teams is good though.
They were.
Yeah,
They were.
Couple of good punts, had the blocked field goal. Patrick Peterson looked like Nate Allen coming off the edge, mid 1970s.
You know who gets the Pro Bowl punter every year? The worst fucking team in the league.
Your mom?
The Pro Bowl. Oh! You know what? Leave Carolyn out of this, because she would have watched about 3/4 of that game tonight and said, she would have had the Marlboro dangling from her lips and said, these guys suck. She would have walked away. Oh, Mama Bunting. She wouldn't have put up with that tonight. There was a lot to be answered tonight, but I don't think we should really freak out as much as need be, because sometimes a loss like this, a complete ass kicking, can really turn you around. And I'm going to stick to it. The Vikings will be 6-1 by Halloween. And I think this loss will smack them in the face like a wet towel to know what they have to do to move forward.
Yeah.
Bad loss, guys.
If I could invoke the late great Woody Hayes,
do it.
Nothing cleanses your soul like getting the hell kicked out of you. And the Vikings got the absolute hell kicked out of them tonight. The only redeeming thing out of this game tonight.
Give me something good, Ted. Give me something good out of this game. Both of you. Ted, Chris.
That it wasn't 38-7. That's the only good thing I got.
That's not good enough. Chris, give me something better than that. Give me something better than that. That's not good. Give me something better.
I guess, when it got to be 24-7 at the half, this team could have just rolled over, and they didn't.
Okay, that's better.
I guess, but yeah, I mean, it ain't much, but it's something. I guess.
Not that Philly was attacking in the second half, but still, they held them to 0.
No.
They gave the offense a chance to get back in the game, Ted, and that's what
they did.
It was frustrating. Ruby's watching the game with me, saying, "Drew, they've had ample chances to get back in this game. They have, and they blew it. They blew it every time.
They did, and not only the defense, special teams gave them a chance to get in the game too, and every single time the Vikings were unable to capitalize.
Is the chat room angry right now? Are they angry at the Vikings, or what's the general feel? What's the general feel of our fans tonight?
I think they're just irritated more than anything else. Yeah, it was. The only good thing, Anthony Tolson, the only good thing is we don't play Philly again this year. We might.
Will.
I mean, hopefully
we will. We are going to play them again. We better be ready for them this time.
Yeah. So, all right. Drew, you asked us, name one good thing. You name one good thing. What's one thing that you can? What's one thing you can take out of this game and build on in a positive way for next week? Come on, you asked the question.
Ted, you put me on the spot. I don't know.
Maybe not enough. It's not good enough.
Maybe Irv Smith, even though he had the drop, he still looked good in other areas. But
he did okay.
There's no really anything good about this. Run defense was sour. Pass defense was sad.
It was just
everything was just sad. I mean, I don't want to say special teams because how you punt is really going to change the course of a game. I think the best thing you can gather out of this game, if you want me to answer the question, is that we got our ass kicked and you learn from it. That's maybe the best thing you get out of it.
I'll say.
We got a Detroit team coming in that ain't no slouch.
Yeah,
so they're going to have to be on their mark next week.
I'll say they got Jalen Rieger incorporated a little bit.
Yeah.
He had that nice end around for first down. Maybe it's something they can build on offensively to get Rieger more involved. I don't know, but we'll see. All right. Before we get out of here, before we get our final thoughts, Ruby has the Wheel of Toons' Destiny ready to go. If you are the winner, all you need to do is contact Ruby at VikingsReportWithDrewandTed@gmail.com. She'll give you a link to get to our prize vault, which you can find on our website, VikingsReport.com. Ruby, if you're ready, go ahead and spin the wheel.
All right, here we go.
Dan
Henneman.
Congratulations, Dan. You know the drill. I think you're a multiple-time prize winner for us. All right,
Dan.
So, Chris, give me your final thoughts on tonight.
Yeah, ugly game all around. If pretty much, I mean, like we said, the special teams was good, but the other two parts of the team were pretty terrible tonight. And like you've said a couple of times tonight, I think we're going to learn more about this team based on how they bounce back next week. Prepare for another division rival at home, and hopefully put a hell of a lot better performance out there than we saw today, because you don't want to lose to Detroit at home. I mean, I know Detroit's gotten better, but you don't want to lose to Detroit at home at all. So this team needs to bounce back next week, and hopefully that's exactly what we're going to see.
Yeah.
First off, Chris, where did you get that hoodie? Because I want one. That's the first thing I want to know.
It is it's from the folks at Homage, HOMAGE.com.
Okay, I will look them up. You're going to have games like this. I mean, you want to keep every game close, but you're going to have games that are just, you get rolled over and everything goes bad. And we've all been in sports a long time. We've watched all this stuff happen. Baseball, football, hockey. Some nights your team just gets rolled and nothing goes right. How you respond is what's important. Everything needs to be left behind. We're going to find out this week when the Lions come to town if the Vikings have straightened the ship, so to speak, or if there's a certain problem on this team that we need to notice. And it's going to be interesting. They got their ass kicked tonight. But as much as they played bad, Ted, they got to give credit to the Eagles. The Eagles had a great game plan tonight. The Eagles had like no weak spots tonight.
And the Vikings couldn't counter it, no matter.
I
don't think the Vikings tried. I mean, I don't know. They feel like they tried, but they didn't do anything to counter it.
Sometimes you got to notch us up. Sirianni won, O'Connell nothing. And when we meet later, maybe it'll be different. But it's football. That's what happens in football. If you're not ready, you're going to get rolled over. Eagles had a great game plan. We weren't ready to play. We lost, but it's only week 2. We move on to week 3. Sorry, ESAT Nation. We're rolling forward. So I'm anxious to see what happens this week. I mean, I'm not happy about tonight's game, but I'm certainly not throwing in the towel on this new regime.
No, and at least the Vikings did not start 0-2. The last 2 years they started 0-2. 1-1's a lot better than 0-2, and they are tied for first with Detroit and Green Bay. So, and they've got the tiebreaker over Green Bay, and Detroit comes to town, and the Vikings have a chance to get the tiebreaker over Detroit. So, yeah, they lost an NFC game, but they didn't lose a divisional game. Everything, after 2 weeks is still right. Exactly. They're right in position to get everything they want to in terms of, getting to the playoffs and all that stuff. I know it's early and playoff talk is real early. But 0-2, nobody, the last like 25 teams or whatever it was, I saw a thing today that if you started 0-2, you weren't going to the playoffs. Right. All the teams that started 0-2 the last 2 years didn't make the playoffs, even with the expanded playoff setup in 20 and 21. So look, it's not a good night. I just one of those things you just shuck out the jive and then you bring in the love and we see how they do next week with the Detroit Lions. They're not your daddy's Motor City Kitties. It's going to be a tough game. Detroit's looked good, at least offensively, these first 2 games.
Sometimes you got to be put in check, Ted.
Yeah, sometimes.
I remember in 6th grade. I remember in 6th grade. Here we go. I used to be a fighter back when I was a kid, and I was leader of the pack in fighting. And I went to school one day, and a kid named Robbie Fino really laid it to me. Just beat my ass. He beat my ass 3 ways from Sunday. I mean, it was bad. He whipped my ass, and I went home and I thought, Robbie Fino. We ended up being great friends after it all, but
good.
He really helped me out to notice that sometimes you think you're the guy, you're not the guy. And sometimes you get a beat down to make you work harder to become the guy. And I'm hoping that's what it was tonight, because that was a beat down. Yeah. But you don't have to throw in the towel on it. You can learn from it. You can go Robbie Fino and say, he kicked my ass, but I'm going to come back I'm going to come back better. So that's story time with Drew. Yeah.
Vikings lose. It wasn't a heartbreaker. It was an ass whipping. That's the only way you can describe it.
It's only Eagles, week 2 though.
But it's only week 2. A lot of football left to go. Detroit comes to town, and the Vikings have a chance to kind of right the ship and get right in the division and move forward. So, and they've got a fairly manageable schedule coming up after Detroit. Name
them off. Name off the next 5 teams.
Hang on, I got it right here. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, it's Detroit this week. Saints in London, home against Chicago, at Miami.
Win.
Miami's looking pretty good.
Yeah, we're gonna beat them. Cardinals win.
So at least I think for at least the next 3 weeks, the Vikings have a good chance to get 3 wins. And how they bounce back from tonight remains to be seen, but we'll find out starting next Sunday at US Bank Stadium against the Detroit Lions,
which we will talk about this week, Ted.
Which we will. You'll see our next episode of Vikings Report, Drew and Ted, Friday morning at 10. Between now and then, head on over to purplepainforums.com. Great website, great community, great original content, great Vikings talk without the toxicity of social media. Head on over to our site, vikingsreport.com. You can find links to all of our social media. You can find a link to the YouTube channel. You can find a link to our Zazzle page with our swag, a link to the prize ball, the link to our Patreon account, all kinds of stuff over there. So check that out as well. All right. We will be back with another episode of Vikings Report Rewind after the Vikings-Lions game next Sunday, as soon as the game ends. For Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, thanks again for all your hard work, Ruby. Chris and Drew, appreciate everything you brought to the table again tonight. Great show. Skol Vikings, and we'll see you next week.